Hello guys, today I will show you a small and easy aligner workflow with CVT rules and etching guide at the end with Maestro3D Ortho Studio in the actual version 5.2, and we are talking about the setup of the tools and how can we make the IPR and the attachments a little bit and the settings, occlusion, jack, some things I will show you. If you have some question, don't hesitate to ask me. You can write me on Facebook. I have the address on the app, and also at the end of the video would be nice to hear from you, and if you need some teaching or training, just call me. We can make some terms, and would be happy to hear from you. And so we are starting. Have some fun and enjoy. We are starting with the DB, with the database of Maestro Ortho Studio, and you have many options to setting up the dentist, the practice and the patient. You can also change these settings if the cases are finished. It's a very new and cool option, so if you have made any mistakes, it's no problem. You have a searching function, and you also have the possibilities to filter it. Yes, we are importing the STLs or OBGs or PLY, also the roots. The roots have to be imported as extracted CBT files in an STL. Possible to use some DICOM data for the whole skull, so it makes no sense. We only need the roots for this case, for this treatment. If you want to export it, just have a look at your CBT software. You're pressing next. We can leave open the order management. If you close, the database will close, and if you are going back, you always have to start the database again. And so if you let the order management open, it's always possible to get back to the order management for changing names or anything else. Just have to load the files, takes a few seconds. And for the first, we have to set up the occlusion, and this is possible with a 3-point area, and also with more than 3 points. This is normally 6 points. It's possible to make it at this way, but probably would be better to make the points one and another, and then you can set new points between. More work for you, but I don't think it's a better result. It's also possible to make this on the upper jaw. It doesn't matter. Normally I think it would be better to make this on the upper jaw, yes, of course. And for the first time it looks very good. You can hide also the occlusion plane, and we are finished and pressing next. This is the occlusion. We have set it up, but it's not totally right, so we can adjust them manually. And for this I always have a look at the midline on the sagittal is in the mid of the 6, and this we have to change. So we have if you have done this, then best up occlusion in the virtual articulation, but it's no virtual articulator available at the moment. Yes, don't beware. In the mid of the 6, sagittal. Look at the transversal. You can always on the left hide and show more of the planes. Yes. If you want to show something or see it better, you can turn it on or turn it off. Also here the models. You can hide it. Yes, and then you only see on the plane cut the lines. Very, very cool. We are finished and going up to next with the left mouse button. So this is our articulated models, and we have the possibility to change the articulation from the lower jaw to the upper jaw. You can set up, if you want to change the upper jaw, use the upper jaw, but normally I would say it's better to change the position of the lower jaw. And so you can view the planes, and you can change the position of the jaw if you have a look at the midlines. So it's very easy with the turn on planes. You can reset the position, you can change the position by pressing the plus and minus buttons, or type in some numbers like you want, or set it free with the mouse. Normally I think it's the best way to make this with type in the plus and minus buttons, but normally it's a very fine tuning, I would say, and so it's better to make this with also fine steps. This is possible. It's normally not needed for a simple aligner case because you don't change the whole occlusion. But I just want to show you how this is possible. You can turn off the planes and resetting the occlusion changes. Can also make this with the ring, the third option. Just reset. If you want to have a look at the occlusion, you can also set it on. Just turn it on, the occlusion check, and you have various options to make the areas bigger in case of the offset, and so you will see it immediately. Here's the offset shown. You can also change this information on the cursor. But there's also a next step for the occlusion inspection. This is the virtual model. If you get some intraoral scans, you have the possibility to make a model for study models, and so you will get nice models for printing, for 3D printing. In the next version it would be also available for holo models at the end. If you make an FDM print, it's not necessary, but if you will print it with a resin printer, it's always better to have a hollowed out model, because you don't need so much of the resin for this. You just tell the software what area you want to leave, and it's like a little bit of cutting the scan data. Yes, you have here the virtual base, and there are many options. The parallel, the ABO, the tweet, the ABO 2013, and you can make various bases. Normally I use the parallel, yes, with automatic options. You can make the height of the model, can change some pointers. They are not okay. If you turn off symmetry just for one jaw, always press the left button if you want to move the points. By double clicking you also can set up new points in. If symmetry off, you can also make just one base in the height, or you give in some values. Then if you want the models always the same height, you can say just my models always 50 millimeters height, and so you will get this. This is the model. And we press next, and we're finished. In the etiquette you have some options of naming the models. Numbers and letters are possible, no pictures or anything else at the moment. You can make it negative or positive. I prefer the negative because it's, for me, to cut it out, it's the better printing solution. Normally they come better out as the positives. Just press next. And the software will calculate. So the next jar, just make it visible and then press the etiquette button, type in what you want. Always the plus, set it on the model, type in what you want to stand there, move it a little bit, then it is the right. You can make it a little bigger, you can rotate it. If the ring is blue in this case, then you can rotate it like you want. You can adjust the setup, the set off of the imprint. Pressing next, so we are finished. You can also set up more than one etiquette on a model. On each side, like you want. On the lower, on the side, on the back. So, and here is possible to remove the brackets if you have a case with brackets on it. But for this case we want just some free-forming of the models. And this is the first one. You have here the size of the pencil and the strongness. Just pressing the shift button, and so you can adjust these values. If there are some spots on the model, you have to, this is the last chance to remove this before you make the aligners. So if you're finished and you see some spots, I think it's always not the best solution to leave them, so just remove these areas. If you have an intraoral scan, I think this is not the most of the problems. But if you come from analog scans and stone models, then you will see this often from bad alginate. Could be a little bit more powerful, I would say normally, but we don't freeform complete models. It's not necessary normally. Just little spots, sharp edges, such as things are needed, not the whole model. There you can give some input, would be also printed on the report. And here is the view section if you have a big monitor, so you can presentate it vary from each view. Yes, so we are changing the buttons and going to the Analyze and Misha tool, and the first of this is the occlusion analysis, and we have seen the models. So we have the offset from the models together. You can change the values by moving the slider, and you will see the upgrowing numbers and values on the left side. And I think this is very, very cool. You have it always in the view. You can turn this on also in the tooth setup. Here you have the segmentation. You can change by moving the slider, the plane, and you will see the cut view. You have more cut views, various planes. Can make it automatically run. And then we are going to the tooth segmentation, and for the first we have to set up wideness of the tooths. You have a fine adjustments possibility, and always keep in mind if you make the first 2 points, set up the numbers, and if you make it from the first, in this case from the 1/6, you just have to put the first time the number of the tooth in, and if you're going ahead, the next numbers already are the right ones. You have it here in the schemata also. Can zoom in, and here you have easy option to make the wideness of the tooth by pressing the scroll wheel, you can move it on the left in the picture. And here you have the right dimension, so you don't have to rotate the models, and it's much the fastest solution for this. Just clicking through, and if you begin on the right side, you will have no problems with the setup. In this case, on the first. Also, if I do make an aligner segment setup from 3 to 3, I normally always make it from 6 to 6 for the segmentation, because if you stop at the don't make that the force also with, then you will have a little bit problems in the movement of the teeth, and the 4 will be also with moved. And so if you segmentation it's not necessary to make there some changes. Yes, in this case we have a missing tooth, the 2.6, and normally this 2.6 would be the 2.7. Yes, because it's missing. But you don't have to segmentate the missing tooth. Most of the time also I would recommend, if the plan is just to move the upper jaw, beware and also segmentate the lower jaw with it. For the first time it takes a little bit longer, but if you have to do some changes also in the lower jaw at the end, you don't have to make the segmentation again or the tooth set up, and just can work it. This is the segmentation line. Normally it's fitting very good. In this case this comes from the bad impression, so the software has a little bit problems with it. If you're pressing the shift button, you can adjust also the wideness of the tooths. It's needed for the segmentation line, and if you double click on the tooths, you will delete the points, and not on the tooth, on the line, on the points. Yes, and you also can double click on the line and you will set up a new point. It's calculating, and in the next step you can adjust the line, the thickness from the tooth to the gingiva. If you make this very sharp, you will get at the end sharp results. If you make it a little bit wider, it's smoother. Standard value would be 0.5. You can change this also up to 1 millimeters. This is this line. Just click on up, on accept, and it will recalculate for the whole jaw. It's finished, and press the next. Always click yes on saving. And we have to adjust the roots. Yes, normally you can change it, the moving of the roots on the tooth or on the root center. I would prefer the root center, because any rotation would come along with the roots. Here you can give in the length of the root. If you have an OPG or anything else, you can rotate it also. This is possible. Or you make one then another. You have many options. You can rotate it on the circle, like shown. If you rotate the model a little bit, the circles will change. And also here in the up, you can just push on the arrows. You can change the root length of each tooth. Or reset. Moving on the roots, it would be very necessary to know what you're doing there. If this is bad done, you will get bad results. The best would be to have an OPG, then you can measure it, or an CBT. Sounds easy with CBT, but it isn't. If you have a bad CBT, DICOM data, then you normally had not many chance to extract the roots, and this would come out of the roots on not the best the most time. And so it's not the baddest thing to have an OPG. There you can measure the length of the roots and have a look how they are located. I think it's not the baddest thing. But always keep in mind there are no standard roots. Yes, everyone has another tooth setup. We have already done. Moving the roots. You can adjust the length of the roots or reset on the circle, or you're moving it by pressing on the circle, so you can change it. If you have some OPG, then like I said, you can measure the length and you will see how is the root the root located. You can by pressing the arrows in the arrow or you have adjust to all, then the length and the rotation would be taken for all the roots. But normally have a little eye on it. Also on the right, if you press on the symbol, you can have from the up only the tooth, from the lower everything is possible. Just double click on the next tooth. You will also see on the left up how the root is changing, so you can normally click very fast and comfortable through this process. If you just want to make a setup from 3 to 3, normally I mark also the 6, but it's not necessary to have a look on the roots of the 6, but the 4 and the 5 as always will make the root setup with. And most of the times 4 and 5 is also a little bit moving within, and so it's the best to set up also this various option. Normally it's not the best to rotate the model all the time. I think it's better to make this from this buttons just the next and don't move the model the most of the time. Just click on the symbols, very comfortable and fast. And like I told you, if you don't know where the roots are, it's very heavy to say where the tooths have to move. And the results would be much more better if you know where the roots are. OPG is more than enough you can get. CBT is very cool, yes, but it's not an easy option to get the roots out of it. You can import it from CBT data, and this is extracted. You can use some software like Invisalius or make it out of the CBT data software. But if you see, it's always a little bit tricky between bone and the root data, because it's not so clear, and if the roots are a little bit not the best, I would say, then you won't get the best results on it. It's a multiple point matching, yes. The software automatically position it, just put on the points on the tooths, and you can remove it, and in the fine adjusting you will get the adjusted roots to the tooths. The software is calculating, and then you have the optimized, and like seen on the 6, there is nothing. And if there are some tooths with root filling, it's also a little bit tricky. And loading the CBT data, you always have to check it again, and you see on the root this point, and this is your setup for the software. Normally it makes very sense to have the lines adjusted to this area, so the software will make the right movements at the end. Yes, like you see, just short before the point, and everything is okay. Yes, if you in the drop down see the rotation center would be the root, then this line go up to this point, and this is what we want. Just set it up for all, and you will have it on all tooths. It's very fast if you're importing the CBT data, yes. But if the data isn't perfect, it doesn't make it easy, I would say. So we have to measure the jaw. Just press on the last tooth, and this is from buccal side, and then you have the length of the tooth completely. Also on the lower jaw, this is just for information. You have here the option to measure some things. Normally I would make from the 4 to the 4th, from the 6 to the 6th. In this case, 67. Yes, it's a little bit problematic. We don't know the 6 on the second. Then from distal 5 to mesial 3 on both sides. These are the standard values, just for me to have the information where I have to move. This is nothing new. We are using in ortho Düsseldorfer values, it's called in Germany. And we are finished. Here you have also the possibility to load an old model, and so you can have a view on what's happened and where we have to go. The virtual setup in the next step, and this is the thing as we are interested in. Yes, now we are ready to rumble, I would say, and it's possible to make various setups for various plans, I would say. Yes, and on the left you have the whole possibilities. You can show the planes, the models. Here the virtual setup 1. Yes, you can make a virtual setup 2, 3, how much you want to show the patient some results. Is it so? And the patient can tell you, no, I want this or that. Also the shiny of the models, if it's too much you can turn it here on and off, and various views. This is just for the optic. Here is the possibilities to make a new setup, and it's always based on the first models. Also for the lower jaw, upper jaw, lower jaw. Here you have the tooths. You can immediately access to the tooth you want, or just double click it. You can mark some tooths together. If you are going here, you can make the completely side turn on and off, or the complete front and move it where you want. You can move it, rotate it, the complete front, or mark just tooths together. Yes, like I've seen a little bit in front to completely, and then we are moving one teeth, then the another. It's possible in the view are taken to move the tooth, and this in rotating, shift and control, or like here, torque it. And on the left, you also have the possibilities with the plus and minus buttons to make a fine adjustment. Normally it makes sense to take the tools to the place you want and make the fine adjustment with the plus and minus buttons. I think it's normally the fastest one, yes. Also beware, don't to move the tools alone. It's always in rotating. That's why it is so necessary to know where the roots are. Here you can turn off the occlusion analysis. Doesn't make sense to have this all the time, because if you move the tooth and it's on, the software will calculate the new position. And if you like see here, these lines are telling you the tooths are going into each other, and so there is necessary some IPR, yes, or you have a misocclusion, like you see on the fourth in this case. If you turn it off, you can move it faster. Normally it makes sense to make the setup and then have a look at the occlusion and the bite and make the fine adjustment also. Rotation, torque. Double click with activate the tooth. Also you can, in the drop down on the left side, this is also possible. With shift, pressing shift and the left mouse button, you will move it. With control and the left, you will rotate it. And control and the left mouse button always have on the view you have. If you will see it from the side, you don't want to rotate it, then the rotation is in another thing, like it is from the occlusion area. If you have a look from the side, it's more tip thing. The shift is always the same. You can move the tooth. Like I told, I normally use the possibility to place the tooth fast, or make the fine adjustment with the plus and minus. And at the end, if my setup would be done, I have a look at the occlusion and for the IPR, if it's necessary or not. And normally I would position the tooths together and then have a look from the front and make the right adjustments. Doesn't make sense to make each tooth one tooth and another done perfect. This doesn't work. Just make the whole the bow and then have a look at the front and then make the fine adjustment. So what is really necessary is if you to have the numbering of the jaw, and this is an auto numbering. You just have to place the first one and the software makes for the model creation at the end the rest. Yes. If you have here and look at the IPR, it's possible on the software can tell you how much it is needed. In this case, you can give it directly in. You will see there's an IPR of 0.12 necessary to get success, and here is the same on between 2.2 and 2.3. And I will show you in the next step how it works. Definitely. You can turn it up. You can also minimize that. Everywhere. software calculate sometimes if it's turned on, and will tell you it isn't needed, or just 0.05. But beware, it's always emulating, takes a little bit time. Yes, between these two can. Or on the second possibility, I will show you, yes, this is the one IPR between, and the software just calculated a little bit. It's more an optical thing to see the IPR tool. Normally I would say it isn't necessary, and I also will show you a faster way like this one. So you have to decide how much will I need, and the most of the questions is how thick has it to be, and for the first time you won't see it. But if you see here now, you have given in 0.15, and normally it isn't necessary at all, because the software tells you 0.08 on both sides or one side, and this is for the second thing, an option. I will show you if you have the tooth and you press on the IPR, this schemata, then you have the possibility to give in the values. On the lower, just double click and don't make a 0, just make 0.01, and you have the IPR automatically here. In this thickness you will need. You can tell the software on both sides or just on one side. And this is for me the fastest way to have the IPR done. Quick and easy and perfectly. So, because if the dentist doesn't make the IPR, you will not succeed at the end. The place between the tooths is the key to success. If there is no place, the tooth can't rotate, and so you won't get the tooths on the end position of your plan. You also can delete it if you just want to click on the trash button you will have seen. And so the IPR is perfectly done. In a short and easy way. Yes, the other thing is you will see the saw, and yes, but do we really need this? I don't think so. I think it's enough to give in the numbers and have the space and just make the setup good. And this is the better way, I would say. And the next thing would be the attachments. Here you can In this schemata you will see the complete movement of the tooths, of each tooth, and so we are going to the attachments. Just take one attachment, press the plus, make a double click on the tooth you want to place, and so you can load some parameters, and you can make it on the arrows bigger, wider. Thicker would be possible on the left side with the plus and minus on the thickness. You can make a torque and rotation. You can copy it. And you can set it to the axis automatically. You can copy it, right mouse click, insert, orientation. You can have a look if it's good. You can take another one. This is also often a question, what attachment would you use for? Nobody can give me an answer on this. If there is a course for it, I would make it immediately, because this is the biggest question of all. The thing would be, use these attachments you have made good a good result with it. Yes, and always belongs how much is the rotation, how you need. It could be possible also you need not only one attachment, also to be needed to take two, also on the lingual or palatinal side, and not always on the buccal side, also on the like it is, because you have to have a look. It could be possible that you have to make an recasing also with the attachments. For the model creation here, we would see now, this is necessary for the steps to get the jaw models for the aligner production. And we have the possibilities to get values. I have the values in the Maestro3D Ortho experts group on Facebook. And you have here the standard values would be used for the adults, and some values for the after ortho, after brackets alignment. And if you want more models, you can set up, and if you, like you have seen, if there are values green, you have to make the values higher. And after you have done this, because the software will tell you this is not possible with your standard values you have chosen, and then you can decide to make a higher movement on the tooths. And if you want to do this, it's possible to go this way with lower. If you have made the models, then you will see the movement of the tooths. In the next step, we have the possibilities to make jaw models for the aligner folds, and there are two options. The first is we draw a curve where we want the model to end. This is the one option. The second option is to do this with a plane, but not always is the plane good enough. If you have drawn the line, the curve, beware that blue arrow is on a tooth. If it's not on a tooth, then you can't press next, and it's working and makes a plain cutted model for 3D printing. No problem, the roots are at the end not out of the model. In this case we have 6 models and the transfer model for the attachments. If your doctor asks you for an etching guide, so he don't have to etch the whole tooth, you can print him a small etching guide, like a splint, but with holes in it. And the holes are there where the attachments have to be at the end, and so we just make a small guide, can set up the thickness, in this case 1 millimeters. The offset from the model would be the offset surface, offset from the surface, and also from the attachments and the milling radius correction. But we are 3D printing, so you can set it up to 0. So always beware that the blue arrow is on the in the etching guide in this case. So the software doesn't work if it's not in the area of the guide. And so you have the etching guide. You can print it with IBT materials. There are various from Dtex, from Keystone, from Aziga. This is the second option you can do. If you say now it's too high, you can now cut it easily. If the jaw is complete, I think this isn't the best solution. It doesn't work the whole time. But if it's plain cutted and you say the models are too high, then you can make it a little lower. At the last, we would get the report. You can adjust the report like you want. You can put in what you want. You can make the colors of it. You can have your logo on it. You can name it like you want. You can zip it. You can close it with a password. Just set up your export, and the software will tell you it's ready exported. You can make a short film. Yes, you can change the logo, the colors, the animation, how long would be the duration of the animation, what format would it be, just for the setup of the name of the film. So it isn't necessary to have an HD quality for just looking at a smartphone from the dentist, or just for sending to the patient. You can both jaws or just one jaw. And if you press the record button, the software will create the video. This is like it's in real filmed. You can also tell the software don't to use the study models at the beginning, no animation anywhere, so it would be a little bit shorter, but the shorter it is, the less information you will give to the dentist or the patient. So keep in mind, just to lower the duration in seconds. Yes, I think 3 seconds is the shortest one, and for me I think it's enough to show the patients what's happened with their tooths. It's a nice giveaway for the patient. We set up the motivation and they can show it to the family. If you have face scan also, it would be shown here, very cool, but at the moment I'm using Android, and Bellows app is only working on iOS, so it's the other things are too expensive for me at the moment, so I won't use face scans. Software asks you for the export folder. I probably would export it in the patient folder, in the ortho model export folder from Maestro. And at least you have to export the etching guide. You can always also make a clear liner. Yes, then you don't have to export the whole model setup, but at the moment I don't think there's a material for it. There would come something from Keystone, Keysplint Hard, and Graphy also have something cool, but first we have to try if it works. If the export for the models, you can tell the software to export the data type for STL, OBG or PLY, and you also can tell the software to zip the whole model set to one zip. If you want to send it to the lab, you are the dentist sending to the lab, they are printing for you, it's a little bit easier, you don't have to zip it extra, the software will do this for you. And so you can decide what format, PLY, OBG, something what the lab needs. Normally for 3D printing, the lab just needs STL for printing. Most of the printers can't read an PLY or an OBG file. It's very nice to see how you can change the views. And for the rest we are finished. So like you see, it's not so hard to make an aligner setup for some aligner treatment, and if you have some question, just call me on Facebook or write me on the messenger. I will get back to you, or if you have questions in the Maestro3D Facebook group, just write your comments or your questions, we can discuss it, and I will be happy to hear from you, and see you. Bye bye.